All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Nunn. I'm the Director of Planning and Transportation. I just want to thank you for taking some time out to join us this morning to talk about the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO. The UDO, as you'll hear us use that several times. But as most of you are aware, that was adopted in November of 2019. And that's our policy guide for all development within the city. So we're hoping that everyone on the call today will learn much more about the document itself, and also be able to find things a little bit easier, and also meet some of our staff. We continue to monitor the UDO since 2019. We've had, I think, almost going on 7 revisions to the document. It's a very large document. If you've used it, I think it's almost 600-700 pages. So as we use the document and as we get feedback from the development community, those are the changes we're taking to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council to adjust things to hopefully make development easier and still achieve what we're trying to do with the quality of development in the city. But it's very important, and one of the big items we're doing these workshops is to hear the feedback from you and your questions. And you know, sometimes the most complicated things can be solved often by a simple answer. So we're going to try our best to make things, you know, easy to understand, direct. We want to hear your questions and comments, and we have time to do that in these workshops as well as afterwards. It's just another method that we're using online here. Hopefully it's a little easier for you in your office to stop for maybe an hour and join us on these things, and as well as our citizens to be able to plug in and just get those comments and questions in a setting to where we can be more direct, give you specific direction on how to find that stuff, and encourage you, just as I said, to reach out to us. If you want to also find other resources, if you haven't looked at the city's website or the planning department website, there's several resources there already that speak to development and how to process permits and how to get development regulations information. So we encourage you to also go to the website there as well. And that's where these sessions will be posted. This is actually our 3rd session. The first session was on our SmartGov portal, which if you're in the development process, you're using that to submit your information. And the second item was from the Department of Inspections, building inspections. They had a session on YouTube as well. So we encourage you to look at all of those, but they'll be there if you need them later for yourself or your staff to go back and look at them. I'm going to take a couple seconds and also introduce our staff this morning. Many of you may have already worked with them. Jamie Lawson is our principal planner. She's also our TRC coordinator. That's our technical review committee that reviews all of our development proposals. She also handles our pre-application conferences, which is PACs, and that's really the first step before you get started on anything or spend dollars or time. The city offers the PAC so you can sit with staff, get some informal feedback, and maybe get a few more questions answered before you go to a final submittal. She's going to lead our workshop. She's going to have some examples for you. We're also going to challenge you a little bit. We do want your questions. We'd like to spark some questions from you. So be thinking of those as she goes through her presentation. Conrad Omedo is our planning manager. He oversees the development staff. He's going to be assisting with the Zoom workshop in our chat box. Use the raise hand feature. We'll turn your mic on. We encourage questions throughout this. You always, again, can call us afterwards if you missed anything or just have something you want to talk about specifically. In addition to the workshop, we've got other city staff that can be available. We can give you that contact information and just be a resource for you this morning. Over the next hour, our goal is to review as much as we can. We've tried to keep it within an hour to respect your time. I'll come back in about 9:30, and we'll try to wrap things up and get things finished up, and can follow up with some questions. Also, maybe what our next session should be as we hear your questions and input. What's the next item we should do for a workshop? So I'll turn it over to Jamie. I just want to thank you again for your time, and we look forward to your participation and input over the next hour. Jamie?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm actually going to have Conrad start the slideshow presentation and walk through the basics, and then we'll be going through a sort of an interactive demonstration. So Conrad, all yours.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Mike. And thank you all for joining us. So this was an opportunity for us to really show you, our customers, the very fundamental basics of the Unified Development Ordinance and the zoning questions that our department faces, helps the general public answer on a daily basis. So let's go ahead and get started. You all know that Burlington's land use regulation document is the Unified Development Ordinance. And just to recap of what we'd like you to walk away with after this morning's presentation. To understand what the UDO is, how to access the UDO on the city's website, how to navigate the UDO for information. Like Mike said, it's 600 to 700 pages. It can be a very daunting task to confront. And that's where staff, we decided, well, what are the most relevant chapters in the Unified Development Ordinance that would be of relevance to you all? And that would be Chapter 3, zoning districts, and Chapter 4, use standards. Then Jamie's going to walk us through a live demonstration of basically what it looks like on our end to maybe help you all to you can start to do that on if we're closed and you have a question, you need to look something up, you'd be able to be empowered to look up some of those questions and answers to land use in the city. Then we'll take some questions and answers. So the UDO is a document that is available online. This is our website. And the first step is to go to the website. You go burlingtonnc.gov. That takes you to the city's official website. And this is where you can do all kinds of services, adopt a pet, look up trash information, but more importantly for us, it's about planning. So what you'd want to do is in the first tab, you'd be going to government, and on the left-hand side, that opens up a tab that says departments, and all the city's departments are listed, and you'll click on planning. And this will take you to the planning page where you'll find, this is our most current website here. So you'll find, and we update this, and this to help us give more information. On the right-hand side, you'll see Burlington Smart. That's our online permitting portal. Jamie and Andrew and Russell have given us videos on how to navigate that. But on the left-hand side, you'll see Unified Development Ordinance. This is where you'll want to click and expand, and it'll take you to the landing page here. So this landing page has got a couple of things that I want to just point out to you guys. The first one is a quick reference guide that was created when the UDO was first adopted. It's just a simple introduction of what the UDO is. In the middle of that page, the second page, you'll find an image of our most current UDO and the link to it. So if you click on that page, on that image, it'll take you to download the PDF. You can also browse the UDO on an internet browser. Now, the third thing I want to point out to you is for your convenience and for staff's convenience, we have all the red line changes that have occurred. Like Mike said, we've got 6 amendments and we're working on the 7th. And that really is indicative of how the UDO is a living document. It's a feedback loop where we're learning what works for the community, what works for staff, what makes the job easier for business to occur in the city. And we take it back, and City Council has been incredibly supportive of the amendments we've been putting forth. And all those changes can be downloaded and viewed in the red line documents. You'll know, I just want to point out the UDO became effective on November 1st, and we adopted something the very following month just to change. So it's been a very lively document since the onset. So when I purposely kept the UDO as an online browser. These are all snaps of the UDOs just because it's going to be easier to show you all. You can also download this UDO, but let's go ahead and just start with the basics. So the UDO is, to make it easier for you, you can scroll using that blue arrow. You can scroll down through the pages, but you'll end up scrolling for quite a bit of time to get to information. That's where on that green circle, you click on that, I think it's called a hamburger icon. That might be a triple or a 4x4 hamburger. You click on that and it opens up. We've conveniently our consultant Chad Meadows has helped us create links within the PDF that you can just hyperlink to the different chapters. And you'll notice all those 10 chapters in there. It's quite a bit of chapters. Again, you're going to want to we're going to be focusing on chapter 3 and chapter 4. And on that red circle on the right-hand side, that's where you can download the PDF. And you can download that and you can put it on your desktop. Just make sure you have the most recent version of the UDO. You can always check with us, and we always will have that on our website shortly after adoption. But the most recent version was amended by council on the 4th of January of this year. So let's go ahead, and there are certain benefits of downloading the document. We can talk about that in another session. So firstly, I wanted to just talk to you about some of the purpose and intent of the UDO. It's a regulatory document that we all follow here in the city of Burlington. And in its fundamental, chapter 1, just wanted to touch on it. The purpose and intent of the UDO is to promote the city of Burlington's public health, safety, morals, and the general welfare. And then there are some additional specific purposes. But this is ultimately the guidance of the intent of why we're following the UDO, why it's so important for us to adhere to it, and to make sure it's current and relevant for Burlington. But let's move on to the table of contents. So when you see this, over the 600 pages, you'll see that the 10 chapters, again, I want to be focusing on chapter 3 and chapter 4. And you can see that it's got the titles there, zoning districts and use standards. So let's talk about that real quick. So the zoning districts, we have several zoning districts in the city of Burlington. The most relevance that we'll see in our discussions with the public are going to be medium density residential, high density residential, general business, and occasionally a light industrial, but mainly those 3 zone districts. The use standards are all the uses that are allowed, and sometimes we'll come across a use that's new. For example, an internet cafe might be a use that's not codified, so then staff has to kind of think about how to park that use category. And we rely on those other chapters in the code to help us with that. So let's move on. Here we are opening the document. You've got chapter 3 in that red circle. So when you click on that hamburger icon, it opens up chapter 3, and then you can start to click around more, and then it gives you all the subsections. And this again was hyperlinked through creation of the PDF. So I wanted to just point to you to when you click on the 3.10 medium density residential, it'll take you to that page in the UDO. You don't have to scroll. So that goes back to why you want to start using this kind of table of contents navigation rather than scrolling through the pages. You can click on it, it takes you. And you'll notice that there are some green, I don't know if you can see them out, there's some gray, I'm sorry, not green, gray highlighted text. You can click on that and it'll take you to that section. But be careful, sometimes you'll go there without, might accidentally click on something, but you can always go back. So that's something that's helpful if you want to learn about what open space set aside, it will take you to that section. It also tells you the chapters. Section 7.1 would be chapter 7 and then 0.1. But this is the district dimensional standards that you'll find in chapter 3. So when you all call staff, this is one of the first places that we would go to and just kind of help walk you through all the information that's on this page. Okay, so I wanted to also point out a different way to find something in the code. So we've got the navigation through the table of contents. You also got Control F. It's just like if you're looking through something on a Word document. I've typed in medium density residential, you click Control F, and you notice it says 7/14. That means that those are all the fines of that word, and you can scroll through and you can kind of click your way through all the different parts of the code where that pops up. This is another useful navigation tool that staff uses frequently just to help find where certain references to the code occurred. You'll also notice on the right-hand side, you see these yellow kind of lines. Those are where in the document you'll find these keyword searches. So you can basically find anything. I was just looking for industrial keywords, and it might pop up 300. So then you kind of narrow it down. You might put light industrial, and it kind of starts to narrow your search down. But that's just another tool for you to be able to find information in the Unified Development Ordinance. So let's go back to this table here. I just want to tell you the system that's used. So this is, you see a lot of tables and figures in the UDO. The figures are kind of helping us illustrate examples of what we're wanting to commonly found in our design standards, not necessarily what we want to talk about today. But here is very simple, a table that tells us information about setbacks. So one of the first things we'll go, can I build a home there? Can I build a duplex? Can I build some apartments? Well, the first thing that we want to know is the setbacks distances. And the setback is the distance a structure needs to be from a property line. So let's look at single family detached. You'll notice I've got highlighted in the green box, you've got a street setback, which some jurisdictions, if you're working outside of Burlington, will refer to it as a front setback. When you have a corner lot, you might have a front and a street. In Burlington, we just have street setbacks. So that street setback is the green, and it tells you, for example, we're looking at a single family detached structure, which is just a home. That's the planning kind of technical term for that. And it says 30 foot, it says 30. And then when you see the side setback, so if you have a rectangular shaped lot, the front from the street setback will be 30 foot. The sides would be 10 foot. What about the back? The back would be called the rear setback. So a simple lot with rectangular nature facing the street, you're gonna be able to know that it's 30 foot from the street, and that's from the property line, not from the edge of curb or the edge of asphalt, from the property line. 10 feet on the sides, and then 25 feet in the back. Now that's all simple said and done, but you'll notice in the red circle, there are 12 and 13 are highlighted in red. So that means that there are some additional notes, and I'll go over that. And that's just something for you to be aware of, that in the table, you'll see notes in addition to numbers, and it's just important to look those notes up. So let's go ahead and run through that. So you got that page expanded, and I wanted just to point out a couple of things. You got the purpose and intent. We look at that letter A up here just to understand what the purpose and intent is. That's really helping staff understand the interpretation of what the purpose of this zone district is. Then we look at the green box. You see this green F, G, and H. That's really your go-to for your setback information. And then your column, single family detached, again, you've got that 30 foot, the 10 foot, and 25 foot. And then the notes, you see them at the bottom of that table. The bottom portion of the table. And in this case, note 12 and 13 are applicable to the street setback, note 12 to side and to rear setbacks. You see additional notes for this rear setback, 25, note 10, 14, and 16. So that's the idea of when we look up a question from a customer, is like, well, how far can I put the home? This is where you can find that information in the UDO. The next question we get is frequently is, what can I do with my property? So you got your zone districts, which would give you the district dimensional standards, but they also tell us what uses are allowed in each zone. I think we're all very familiar with that. Residentially zoned property, you may not be able to put a fast food restaurant. Likewise, a fast food restaurant location may not be able to be suitable for a single family detached home. So we're gonna go over that at some later point about rezonings, but let's just stick to what we got so far. So we've got chapter 4 is where we're gonna find all of our use standards. And we've got different kinds of uses. We've got principal uses, prohibited uses, use specific standards, accessory uses, and temporary uses. So principal use, I'll give you an example. I have my home, that's my principal use. I put a shed, or a home will be more a home occupation permit. Let's say I was a piano teacher and I was teaching piano. That would be an accessory use, a home occupation use. Putting a shed on my property would be considered an accessory structure. So those are where we find those other kinds of uses. But mainly my property is being used as a home. So that's a principal use. So let's go ahead and navigate to the principal use table. It's several pages long. It's another table. It's like a matrix. And you can find it in chapter 4.2C, principal use table. So when you look at this table, you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see a couple of letters. Just so you know, if it's blank in the box, it means it's not permitted. But you'll find the letter P, which means it's permitted, the letter S, which means it's a special use permit, and that would go before the Board of Adjustment. So that's called a quasi-judicial decision. Staff cannot approve that. C is a conditionally zoned district. Again, staff can't approve that. It goes to City Council. Then you have A, which is really, we're not going to talk too much about it, but it's an allowed use within another zone district called planned development districts or planned downtown development districts. Again, those go to City Council. The focus I want for you all to really look at is the letter P for permitted. Those are ones that are uses by right. So uses by right are what you'd be allowed to do, confirming that staff could, confirm. And you want to put a home, yeah, it's a permitted use by right. You don't have to go to a Board of Adjustment. You don't have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You don't have to go to City Council. And that's done intentionally. That's done intentional so that way it facilitates uses within certain districts. So when you're looking at this page, a couple of things I wanted to point out to you. Those letters that we just discussed, that I just showed you, are in green, A, C, P, and S. And it has blank cell where that green line is, means it's prohibited use in that district. You've got rows and columns. So the rows are all the use types. Now the use types are planning related. They're defined through a planning lens. So for instance, we'll go in a little bit, I'll tell you about a simple home, but the use types nonetheless, they're all defined also in chapter 8 under definitions, just in case you want to look that up. But there's residential use classifications, institutional use classifications, and industrial, commercial, and agricultural use classifications. So what we've done is we've organized all the use types based on the type of use it is. Is it residential? Is it commercial, et cetera? So you'll see that. What that means in our discussion, I'll talk about in a little bit. I want to look at the yellow box now. The yellow box is the columns. Those are all of the zone districts in the city of Burlington. Limited use is another exception, but we won't go there right now. You see, there's a lot of layers to this information. And then you see the purple circle is the use specific standards. That is where you'll be able to find out, for instance, what additional standards, aside from it can be a permitted use, but then there are some specific requirements for that use. It could be a buffer, it could be fencing, it could be a distance from another zone property, et cetera. Let's go ahead and move on though. So that is the, let me see here. Okay, so this is the example, that same page. I want to build a home. Okay, so if you notice in that red circle where the red is, you can read it. If I looked up in the use type, just home, I would not find a single family detached dwelling. This is why I wanted to bring that use up, because a lot of folks, can I build a house on the property? So a planner would read the word house and translate it to a single family detached structure, a dwelling. That's the technical term. So that's just something to be aware of when you're looking up use types, is to make sure that they align with what the UDO is. And that's just a learning process. And we're here to help you with that. So we would find that use type in the green arrow, where the green's pointing, and you find it in the blue arrow is pointing to the residential use classifications. That's the first place to look for, and you kind of start to dig around there. And so what I want to do next is talk about what—
Conrad, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
There's also, if you're unclear in terms of trying to categorize your use type, there's also a definition section at the end of the UDO that you could take a look at how we define each of the different use types. So that may be helpful if, for example, you're not sure if you fall under single family attached or detached or multifamily, because oftentimes we get questions in terms of we want to build a townhome or townhouse, for example, and we don't have that category here, but that would fall under one of our single family attached dwelling types. So
Mhm.
just a good example of, where you may not find something here, you might find it elsewhere in the UDO.
Right. Thank you, Jamie.
Mm.
So the next, let's go ahead and move into, so let's say we've got the definition resolved and we know that we're going to be building the single family detached dwelling. So let's look at the row. Just to go over what you got here, this green box is telling us that the single family detached dwelling is a permitted use in the zone districts RMH, LDR, MDR, HDR, MX, OI, and NB. It's also A, allowed in PD and PDD. The red box tells us that it's not permitted. It's not a permitted use. So if staff were to get a submittal for a new home in a district where it's not permitted, we wouldn't be able to administratively approve that request. But if it came in, for example, in an MDR zone district, staff could look at it, make sure the setbacks are applicable or are satisfactory, and we could approve it. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. Jamie, you're more than welcome to pick it up from there.
Do you still have the slideshow open, or you want me to?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
open it back up and you can go from there. Let's see here.
Okay. So I'm gonna walk through, as Conrad's getting that up, I'm gonna walk through sort of an interactive training on how you find your location on our zoning map, how to find the zoning of your property, to see whether or not there are any overlay zoning districts on your property, and then kind of walk through what would be the allowable uses that are allowed on the property, and any next steps. So thank you so much.
Mhm.
So again, some of this may be repeated, but it's helpful information. So basically, in terms of trying to find the zoning of the property, we have our zoning map and our GIS interactive tool. This is the city's website. Again, you would go to government. You can advance forward. And then on the left-hand side, again, as Conrad explained before, go down to planning. That's where you're going to find a lot of our resources here. Next slide. And go down to the GIS division. Click on that, and that is going to take you to a page, go ahead, where it says Interactive GIS Zoning Map. Once you click on that page, there are some other mapping tools that may be helpful to you if you're looking up other information. But what we're going to focus on today is the Burlington zoning map. So you have to accept the disclaimer that's kind of shown on the right, and then it's going to take you to this slide, this page here. I'm going to switch to the zoning map on my screen, but this gives you an example of what it would look like to navigate through our zoning. And you can see there's all different hatch marks and overlines and different colorings. So let me switch to my screen now. Okay, so once you get into the Connect GIS, GIS mapping tool, there's a lot of different ways to search a property. You can search essentially by clicking on, and you would find all this information on the left-hand side. Can you see my cursor moving around? Okay. You can search a property by the 6-digit tax ID number. You can search by a property address. You can search by an owner name. And you can also search by an address. So that's kind of, and I found this by going to the advanced search tab on the left-hand side. So when you open it up, it may look more like this with just a couple of the entries. Go down to the bottom, click advanced search, and you'll find that there's some more ways to search a piece of property. Now, for example, let's say you wanted to search all of the properties that the city of Burlington owns. You could type that in. You should be able to type that in down at the bottom here, and then a list would populate all down here. So I typed in to get to this property here. Let's say I wanted to do my first search. Of course, it has had it working when I started this morning, but in any event, I've got a quick useful tool here. I wanted to search 425 South Lexington Avenue to find out what the zoning was of this property. So let's say you've got to your property here. You see the different codes and colors. On the right-hand side, you'll find the different categories in terms of what you're seeing. You've got the zoning category, and you can turn this on and off. There's also overlay zoning districts that we have throughout the city, watershed critical areas, overlay districts for the historic district, airport overlay districts, and other boundary information that we'll talk about, as well as other features on the property that might be helpful to you in terms of developing the site. But once you've found your property and you can see that there's some labeling on here, you can click on the Legends tool, and that will take you to a legend in terms of what the different color codes stand for. So you can see CBD stands for the Central Business District zoning category, and that ties and relates back to a lot of the information that Conrad was showing before. Any questions on that? I'm going to just stop at this point and see if there's any questions from any members of the audience. And you can, we want to have this interactive. So if there are any questions, feel free to raise your hand. It looks like there's a question from Greg Hargrave, and I'm going to allow him to speak.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And thank you, Mike and the staff. This is very informative and helpful. I was thinking about, especially the feature related to the property, would there be a time that it would show you something like that this area is an opportunity zone or something that would lead you to certain grant opportunities or something like that? Would it ever state anything like that?
Not this map. This mapping tool is specific to, the zoning of the property and the allowable features. So this tool wouldn't be identifying that.
Okay, I was just wondering about that.
Yeah, we do have a economic development office that can be helpful in terms of identifying any grants or opportunities to help property owners or developers. So we can share that information with you as well.
Okay, and I just had one other question. This being a live document like it is, the revisions, is that perpetual, or will there be a time when those will stop and this will be like the final document, or do you always go back to council, say a year from now, and something else could change? I was just wondering about that.
I think the benefit of a UDO or a Unified Development Ordinance is that it's fluid. It is not concrete. Things change, circumstances change, areas in the city change, and as Conrad went through previously, we've done a lot of amendments even after the UDO was adopted initially in 2019. So we see that as something that we would continue. you know, there's certain tweaks and you want to make it as a document that's as user friendly as we possibly can. So
Thank you. That's all
the
I have.
purpose of these, you know, meetings, to get input from the community in terms of, you know, what we can do further to assist and also help educate as we go through.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other hands at this point. So I was going to just walk through a couple other exercises and then show again, kind of repeat some of the aspects that Conrad went through. I think his presentation was very thorough. I'm just seeing another hand raised. Okay, Veronica, I see that question was the same, essentially. So let's see. Can you still see my screen with the zoning map tool? So let's say you wanted to search another, let's say you knew the 6-digit code of the property. You would type it here on the left-hand side. You would essentially type it in on the left-hand side and it would come through. I wanted to give an example of a label that may come through that you may not see on the right-hand side exactly and exactly understand what it means. So for example, let's say you pulled up a piece of property and it came up to CB 950. And you'll see that also here with the CI 887. Essentially, that means that that property was received approval under the conditional rezoning application. And that would mean that different from, as Conrad went down the list of the table of the permitted uses in our UDO, that would mean that there's an actual approval associated with the site that may have conditions above and beyond what our ordinance allows for. So maybe there's specific uses that were permitted or excluded, or there's a limitation in terms of the building size, for example. So that's where you could contact staff and find out specifically where what information might be available to help you identify the rezoning. You can also, some other things that might be helpful to use when you get to this mapping tool. You can click on the property with the, maybe my session has expired since I started this last night and had it opened. That's probably why. So as I'm walking through some of these other things, I'll go back and reload it. That was my error. Sorry about that. I was trying to be proactive in getting this together, but you can click on this eye icon on the property and that will bring up what you see here on the right-hand side. You'll see the property address. You'll see the zoning district of the property. You'll see whether or not it's in a floodplain and whatnot. So, and I will switch here to see if I can reload this and just kind of walk through how I got to this step and see if this will work for you guys. So again, we went to the GIS, to the government page and scroll down to departments, to planning, to the GIS division, to the interactive zoning map, proceed to the site, click on the Burlington zoning map, accept the disclaimer, come back to where we were, go to the advanced tab, bring up the information here, type in the property address. Here's the property. Now, again, I'll sort of repeat what I said. If you're just looking for all of the Burlington properties and you just know the owner's address, that's going to list them all down here. You'll see them numbered. That corresponds to this code down at the bottom. If, let's say, you wanted to see Huffman Mill Road, you would click on the magnifying glass and that will bring you to the property. Okay. I'm glad I brought you to here because now you can see that there's other information that you may be able to find on the property as well. For example, if you click on the hydrology tab, you'll see that there's a tab for surface streams. I'm not sure that I see any here, but surface water would come on and off. And then if there were floodplains, those would be highlighted here as well. So this is a helpful tool to kind of see, if there's any constraints on the property, just up front. Again, I'll just see if there's any questions, and if not, then I'll move forward. Also, you'll see that there's an overlay district here. So this would come on and off if that was in the area, but you can click on and off these different tabs to help identify the properties. Once you've identified where your property is in the zoning district, let's say, let's go to another example. And I'm going to type in, let's see if this will bring me back. Okay, so this property here is tax ID number 125919. It is located in the LI zoning district. And again, you would find that by going to the right-hand side, and this purple shade corresponds with light industrial right here. I'm going to switch to these other tabs that I have open and go through kind of what Conrad had highlighted before in terms of where you would find the information for the permitted uses. Again, you would go to government and planning, and then the Unified Development Ordinance tab, and then download that document. You can either download it or you can search it on the web. So again, that property that we were just looking at is in the light industrial zoning district. Again, Conrad explains the makeup of this UDO, but you would essentially scroll down or find the LI industrial standards. That's section 3.8. And this gives you the parameters in terms of the development standards and the dimensional standards of if you were going to be building a new building or expanding onto an existing building. Again, in terms of, okay, now I know the zoning district, I know the dimensional standards per se, what would I be able to develop on the property? We go back to the idea of principal uses, use specific standards. There are also prohibited uses. And then we also have accessory uses and temporary uses. And all of these different things are defined under section 4.1. So for example, in our LI zoning district, you would find the purple column and go down again in terms of what is allowed in the zoning district. For example, automotive painting and body shops are allowed. That would be identified here with this P. But you can see in the right-hand side where there are numbers under the use-specific standards. Something may be allowed, but there are also standards that are associated with that use. Where there's a P and there's no numbers or letters on the right-hand side, then it's a use by right, as Conrad explained. But for example, automobile painting and accessory sales would be allowed in the LI zoning district as a use with use-specific standards. So then you would go in section 4.4 and look for under the commercial use, and just going back, the classification for the uses is highlighted here. And you would look under the use specific standards under 4.4, tab down to commercial uses, and everything is in alphabetical order. So then you would go to the number 7. And that is where you would find if there are any standards associated with the use that would be allowed under the zoning district, but limited. So for example, in this section, the use is allowed, but it's got to be 250 feet from a residential zoning district, school, or other childcare type use. So then that may limit, you know, your ability to place that use there depending upon what the area has. In addition, as I mentioned, there's also accessory uses that are allowed. That would be examples, like an accessory use could be sheds or garages or pools. Probably one of the more common ones are fences and walls. So you can see fences and walls are listed here. They're allowed in every zoning district, but you can see under the right, there's a reference to the use specific standards. Click on that link, the hyperlink, excuse me, and that will take you to the use specific standards associated with fences or walls. And again, that's found, if you can see my my cursor on the left-hand side, that's found under 4.5 accessory uses. Hit the arrow down, and then there are use specific standards found there. So this section deals specifically with fences. And then also within this is probably one of the more common sections that we refer to. This takes a look at the maximum height for fences, and it goes broken down by the zoning district that you're in. So again, this is helpful to know, you know, what your zoning district is, and then where the height of the fence is dictated in terms of where you're placing it on the property.
Hey, Jamie, we got a live question. This is a good question that sometimes pops up
Okay.
on the phone. It's our flag poles. Where would I find flag poles in the UDO
I
as an
think
accessory use?
Those, I believe, are also under accessory uses, or they could
I'm looking it up too,
be
just to
in,
help out.
yeah, they're right here on the table 4.5E. This is the common accessory use table, and the flagpoles are listed here. They're permitted in every zoning district, and then there are use specific standards associated with the flagpole. So I would click on that, and that would take you to page 4-66, and that lists the standards associated with flagpoles.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. A great example of, you know, the kinds of, when you start to like to think of it, peeling the layers of the onion, like how Jamie.
Let me bring you my water and my.
Jamie, we might need to mute some of the participants, the attendees.
Okay.
that if you got are there any other questions on accessory uses, why don't you give us a quick challenge to staff and we can do a live lookup for you.
I'll also just highlight as,
Mhm,
in case anybody does want to
mhm.
ask a question, feel free to raise your hand.
I'll keep an
There
eye for
are,
that.
okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Then there's also specific standards for temporary uses. So this you'll find like food trucks, merchant sales, other types of temporary structures, temporary dwellings, all fall under section 4.6 of the UDO. So that's kind of helpful in terms of the different allowable uses. And any questions at this point? Once you identify the particular uses that you're looking to, let's say you're trying to identify the type of use that you want to occur on the property, and you've got your property there, the best next step that staff can offer is the pre-application conference meeting. And Conrad and Mike talked about that previously. We have had other training sessions on how to request the PAC meeting, and I've gone to the page where we've got all of our different online learning sessions already uploaded, so you can download or click on the link and it'll take you to the YouTube channel to see how to request a PAC meeting and the basics of the technical review committee. But essentially, staff provides the pre-application conference meetings free of charge. They're informational meetings where you would just contact us and make a request through our SmartGov portal, give us some information about the property and what you're looking to do, and then we would meet with you and walk through the parameters of the UDO. They're very helpful tools so that you can get information before you're spending a lot of time and resources, and you can get some basic information from planning, transportation, engineering, and NC DOT.
Got about 5 minutes, Jamie.
Okay, I was
Maybe
just going to ask if anyone in the audience has a particular property that they're interested in finding out the zoning or what the permitted uses are. I'd be happy to kind of walk through any examples. If not, I can pull up some other properties, but we're here to be a resource to you. So if anybody has a development site, okay. If not-
Jamie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Nathaniel. On fences, did you say now does fences have to be permitted or they do not have to be permitted? It's like a backyard fence, maybe 4 or 5 foot high. Does that need to be permitted?
Yes, sir. Yes, you would need
Okay.
to apply for a fence permit.
Okay.
Another thing that property owners or developers can also request in addition to the PAC meetings is applying for a zoning verification letter. And that is also done through our SmartGov portal. And you would just put in the information in terms of what you're looking for, whether a use is permitted under the zoning district, or what zoning district the property is in. We get those requests quite regularly. So does anybody have a property they want to toss out? No. Okay. I'll just pick another site then. So again, if you can see my zoning tool, just type in the tax account number. See, 120183. Okay, this is another piece of property you can see here. some of the parameters. This shows the boundary for the city limits that's highlighted in this green shade. And you can see that there's floodplains. That is the blue shade down at the bottom. Then let's see what else. The property is in this MI zoning district. So you would go to Legend and that would correspond here with medium industrial. And you can also see the other shades around here, medium density residential, light industrial, and some of the overlay zoning districts. You kind of have to, the way that our tool is right now, and this may change in the future, but I wanted to show you what we're using currently. You kind of have to click things on and off until things disappear. So don't get discouraged. Just know that that is the case, and there may be some limitations in terms of tools, but I think that this is the best way for folks to research on their own, and then staff is always available. If you want to go back to the slideshow, I'll stop sharing my screen and advance to the next step slide.
Yes, let's get this. Give me 1 second here. Let me get the share screen option coming up here. Okay.
So again, in terms of the next steps, staff is always available to meet with folks for a pre-application conference meeting. And then at the bottom of the slide, I've also put the link to the pre-application conference information. As much information that somebody can provide to us, it's helpful. So if you know what you want to do on the property and have a concept map, that's always great. And then you can see this is the different categories of what you could apply for. The zoning verification is also down here at the bottom right. I think the next slides also just have some information in terms of what I referred to before, our online learning. So we'll be putting this training session up on our online learning page. That'll be number 3. And here are some additional resources for you to navigate and be familiar with. All of these different things are on our website for the documents, but then there's also the staff contacts should you have any questions. Any other questions? Conrad, any other points that you would like to add?
No, I think we've, we're here to, of course, to assist any folks. The mechanics, the tools that you've been shown can be applied to any property. We're just using the city of Burlington, because it's the city's property and property owner information. We want to be respectful of that. But it's the same process. You get the address, you can look by property owner, you can look up by the GPIN, which is each property gets assigned a unique property identifier. The County of Alamance has a 6-code digit number. So when you all call our office, we're going to ask that information. And it's just for us to look up if you're in our jurisdiction to begin with. You could be in one of our surrounding municipalities, or you can be in the county's jurisdiction. And then we can look up the zoning. And then we can start to do that process that we went from in the very beginning, where we're looking up the zone district your property's in. We're providing you the district dimensional standards in the UDO. We're looking at the uses, as Jamie was doing. You got different kinds of uses. You got use specific standards. You have accessory uses like flagpoles and sheds. You've got uses that may not be permitted. There's a lot of questions that pop up, and hopefully you can walk away from this session and you can look up a piece of property and you can get that first layer of the onion. And then you can come back and talk to us and ask us more detailed questions, or you can have the answers that you need, because staff is honestly looking at the same documents. Looks like we got some.
Yep, and I
Alright,
just
great.
put in, Greg asked, how do we get a
Mhm.
copy of the slides that we used today? So this video will be available on the city's website, and I just put the link to the learning, online learning web page, so you'll be able to view it that way.
And staff, Jamie and I, we can both we'll create a PowerPoint. We can do a PDF, and we can put a link to that, so you have the video and you have the PowerPoint also.
Yep, we'll just put the PowerPoint on that
Yeah.
page too.
We can do that.
Okay.
So I think we
Yeah.
appreciate everybody's time this morning.
Yeah,
And
Just
Go ahead, Mike.
yeah, just to close, it's just, that was a quick hour for everybody to dive into that. I think hopefully you see there's a lot of resources available, and a step at a time is the best way to look at it. You can use the table of contents, you can use the PDF search tools. There's different ways to find that information, and if you're not PDF savvy, Adobe savvy, or computer, we're here. Give us a call. We have staff. You met some of us, a few of them this morning. We have others that can help you with any questions you have. I'll be glad to sit down and walk through it again either way, but please don't hesitate, as you get into that document and you see something you're not quite able to find it, just let us know and we'll be glad to help you. We're going to continue thinking of other sessions to have. Some of these are going to get a little technical and a little deep, but that's for those that want to get that level of information. So we're going to be looking forward to maybe the next session to what we can present to you and walk through and answer questions. So thank you for your time this morning. I hope it was helpful to you. Stay tuned. Check out the website. There's resources there. We hope you have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Welcome. Thank you.
take care.